Hi, and welcome back to Rugged Mountain Homestead. My name is Sarah, and I am so glad you're here. Today we're going to do something just a little bit different. As you could tell, I'm making jelly from the scraps that I had in the refrigerator from all the fruit that I processed last week. So go ahead and pull up a chair, grab yourself something to drink. In my case, it's sparkling water because I've gotten the kitchen a little warm, and let's have a chat. Now, I see in a lot of places, and I've had some conversations in the not too far past with people concerning homesteading and what that looks like and what it actually is and what they can do to be more prepared in an ever-changing, chaotic world that we're living in. And for any of you who've watched any of my previous videos, you can see that a lot of this fire inside of me that I have for this way of life really just ignited during COVID. I always wanted to live this lifestyle, but just it always seemed out of reach for one reason or another. So I tried learning some things that I could implement in a suburban area to be prepared, to be mindful with the world around me, and to live as closely to nature as I could where I was. Living out rurally is not for everybody. I'm aware of that, but being prepared is necessary for everybody. So I have a few tips here today that I wanted to share with some of you who actually were wanting to know, what can I do to be more prepared? Homesteading, in my opinion, is a lot of your mentality for preparedness, your mentality that I can and I will learn new skills in order to make life easier, more sustainable, and help make wise decisions so that when something does occur, you're not taken by surprise. So the first tip that I have for you that I implemented into my world back when we were still living in the suburbs was to learn to bake bread, any kind of bread, whether it's white sandwich, which I think is the easiest, whole wheat, which I'm still working on, or sourdough, which I've done and I enjoy, but I would not suggest it for someone who is learning to bake bread for the very first time. I have an amazing recipe for white sandwich bread. I will go ahead and provide a link to that video in the description box, and just have a go at it. And it's a lot easier than you may think. Also, you're going to want to plant and learn some about herbs, because herbs are not just for seasoning. And one of my first concerns was, what would I do if I could not get the medication that I need? Now, I'm not a nurse or a doctor or an herbalist, but I do follow some that are. And I'm not trying to give you advice such as this is what you should do. You should use these herbs for A, B, and C and give you the recipes for it, because it's an evolving process and I'm still learning a lot about it. But Melissa K. Norris at Modern Homesteading, that's her YouTube channel, she has a wealth of knowledge on the subject. And so I do grow herbs for the fact that I can use some medicinally in addition to using them as seasoning for our foods, and that's another way of being prepared. And it's so interesting learning about herbs and things that we, like dandelion, that we think are weeds, and they have such healing power. A big one is cooking from scratch. My best advice would be to go in your pantry and your cupboards, wherever you keep your food, and look at it and think to yourself, okay, what am I buying that I see that's in a box or a bag that I really could make for ourselves? Could it be something like bread, jam, spaghetti sauce, any broth, that you may use, whether it be beef, chicken, or vegetable, any seasoning mixes, muffin mixes, brownie mixes. You can do all of those things, and you will be surprised at how much better you'll feel when you're the one putting them on your shelf, the money that you'll save from buying them, and just, it's so encouraging to know that you have a new skill, that if something should happen, and I'm not a gloom and doom person at all, but I want to be able to care for my family in a more mindful way, like I said, in this ever chaotic world. A big one, learn to can. It's not as daunting as what a lot of people think. You can do water bath canning, which is behind me, which I'm gonna be doing for my jellies, but you can only water bath can things that are high acidic, such as fruit and tomatoes and salsa. So you really kind of lose out the ability to create and grow a large pantry if you're solely dependent upon water bath canning. Pressure canning is not hard. It's not scary. I was one of those people, I was afraid in the very beginning. When I was putting the little weight on the steam coming out, I had an oven mitt on because I thought for sure I'm going to burn myself. I'd heard the horror stories of things blowing up. Things don't do that anymore because you do have your pressure gauge on there, and it tells you how much pressure it is. It has, safety valves. You can always turn the heat off. There's just so many things. So don't be intimidated by that, because that is such a skill to have in a world where that skill is really going to the wayside. We probably, maybe, have a handful of people left from the generation that depended on canning as a way of life to have food to sustain them through the winter months, which goes along with my next tip of build a pantry. One step at a time. Think about doing some bulk buying. Look in your cabinets in your pantry and say, okay, what do I go through the most? Do I use a lot of flour, a lot of sugar, your staple items? Do I use dry beans, or do I use a lot of canned beans? And then say, look at your grocery shopping. How much flour are you buying in, let's say, a month's time? Okay, are you buying 10 pounds of flour? Then think about buying 20, 25 pounds of flour and extending that time that you have to go to the store, or, if flour's not available, you have it on hand. And just start looking at the things one at a time. And that's basically what I did. I looked and I said, oh, I buy black beans off the shelf at the grocery store. I buy chickpeas off the shelf at the grocery store to make hummus, to make, put black beans into my burrito filling, different things like that. It is much more cost effective to buy a 5-pound bag of beans and can them yourself. You would be surprised at the cost difference. Another one is to have a garden, whether it's in raised beds, if the area is good where you live and you can have it in the ground, or in containers. Don't think that because you're in a rental or you live in an apartment that you can't grow something, that you can't have a small garden, because you can. You can grow tomatoes in 5-gallon buckets. You can have, a large container put on the patio with lettuce. You can grow a salad garden. So many different things. And it's so nice to be able to go in your backyard and pick off some tomatoes for dinner with some lettuce, a cucumber, all these types of things. Grow vertically. If you don't have, if you just have the patio space and you don't have enough space on that patio for something to sprawl out, put a trellis up. Cucumbers love it, squash loves it, and it will be an opportunity for you to learn how to be sustainable. Okay, this is a huge one. I don't want anybody to hate me for it, but it is so true depending upon what you're planning to do or what it is that you want to do. And this one is, it's not popular, it's a hard one. Get out of debt. You're gonna say, I can't get out of debt. There is no way. I felt like that a long time ago too. And I just thought, there's no way I'm ever gonna make enough money to get out from under this debt. And so as my job started evolving and my kids were getting older and things like this, I started really looking hard for ways that I could cut back or cut some things out so that I could apply that money toward debt. And you may say, well, I don't have enough left over to save or to put extra towards, toward debt. There's things I have to do for my kids, and I completely understand. But I was also one of those people, when I was working at the office, I was getting a coffee every day. And for me, that added up to $25 a week, which was $100 a month. I cut out those coffees, and I took that $100 and slapped it onto my monthly car payment. And I paid off my car 7 months early just by doing that. Eating out is another big one. We all need a treat from time to time, but eating in a restaurant, basically that's exactly what it should be, is a treat. If we have the mindset that that is just part of our weekly meal planning, it's not a good idea. It's expensive. And when I was working full time, we were eating out or getting takeout probably 3 times a week. And I had not learned yet how to make convenience items, how to make meals in a jar that I could just, dump into a pot or in the pan, put it in the oven, and the whole meal just be ready to go. I just had to heat it through. So either if I was too tired, if I was too stressed, anything like that, then I just got takeout, and I did not realize how much money we were spending and eating out. That is something that we decided to cut back and to use it as a treat only, and it propelled me into looking into what I could do besides just a crock pot meal for the family during the week, knowing that I was not going to make it through a whole week of cooking from scratch every single night. It just wasn't feasible in the job that I had and the hours that I worked. Another big one for me is to connect with local farmers for beef, pork, chicken. You would be surprised at what can go into our meat that is legal up to a certain point and be sold. Meat in the natural state is not bright red. It's not at all the same. And you're thinking, okay, well, if I buy a quarter of beef or a half of beef, that is a lot of money out at one time. And you're right, it is. It was kind of a bite for us too the first time we did it. But when you do it after the first time, then it really kind of weighs itself out, because you are not buying meat from the store at all, and it tastes so much better. And it all depends on what you like as to what, type of farm or ranch you want to look to. Some meat is grass-fed and grass-finished, and some meat is grass-fed and grain-finished. I don't mind the grain-finished. It gives a little bit of extra fat, and, it's still fresh beef right off the ranch. And in the long run, it does cost less. In the long run, it does. I know that my local market here, because we have so many ranches and farms where we live, they sell local meat. And, you can put in an order for a fresh grind, and then, you buy a certain amount. I think it's over 10 pounds and it's $5.99 a pound. Can't beat that. Ground beef is expensive. Everything's expensive. The inflation has just taken off and everything is so expensive, making life difficult. Well, it doesn't have to be once we learn new skills. Also honey. I'm lucky enough to where I do know someone who is a local beekeeper and I can buy honey from her and it is fantastic. It is the best honey I have ever had in my life. So, try to find somebody in your area that keeps bees. If you can't, then, go to maybe a specialty market and just try and find some local honey to your area. And the reason I say that is because local honey in your area, it's going to have the properties in it that are more geared to your area that can help you, let's say, with allergens or things like that. So it's really important, and honey is great in so many ways. It's more than just your sweetener. It's great fermented. It's great, soothing when you may not be feeling well. It's just has a lot of healing properties to it. A big one, give yourself grace. Know that nobody can do it all, but we can try to do a little bit. If we do a little bit each time we have a new skill set and say, okay, I know how to can now. I know how to water bath can. What's the next step? I'm going to learn to pressure can. Okay, I can bake bread now. What's the next thing I can do? And just take those steps. It's not always going to work out the first time. I had some jelly this week that didn't set up right. I did everything right according to the directions. I had read where in my area that I could pressure can or water bath. So I pressure canned some jelly. It didn't work. It's like syrup. I'm still going to use it. It's definitely not going to waste. I can put it on pancakes. I can put it in the crock pot with some meatballs. I can use it for sweet and sour pork, just all kinds of things. But give yourself some grace. It's not going to work out the first time, all the time. Learning new skills takes time. And when you're in a rush, I know it's true for me, when I'm in a rush, that's when I'm going to make a mistake. I'm going to get all wired, and I did it last week again. Dean was in here talking to me about something, project he was working on here in the house, and I was trying to listen, but yet I was trying to bake his muffins at the same time, and I kept losing track. And when he had those muffins, I said, how did they turn out? And he said, they're just not as sweet as they usually are. And I thought, yep, because as soon as I was putting them in the oven, I thought, did I add the sugar? Did I put some sugar in those? Nope, I didn't. I told him, I said, don't talk to me when I'm in the kitchen. It's my workshop. So, but give yourself some grace. And the last thing, learn to rest well. Learn to rest. That is something I had to learn to do. I used to push myself to the point where I was just ready to drop. Or I pushed myself so hard that I ended up getting sick, because when something would go around, I didn't have the immune system to fight it off. Or, get migraines, things like that. Learn to rest. You say, I don't have time to rest. You need to make time, or else you're going to be sick and down for a lot longer than if you had rested. There are certain seasons in our life where we stay busier than usual. And for Dean and myself, that is spring.